How did that play out?
You've heard of train wrecks? Yeah.
Welcome everybody to episode 3 of Gary Word Trail Running Podcast. You got myself, Mark, here, and I'm with special guests, Paddy and Phil, who are also my co-hosts for this podcast series. I would like to just acknowledge this section of the trail, but also the Jawajali and Japarong as the sort of traditional custodians of Gary Word and the places we live. So this section of trail, actually when they were building it, they had to realign quite a significant section of trail, or a bit of trail, because they found some rock art that had not been recorded, and there actually was no recorded rock art in this area of the park, and so had to sort of move the section trail to show that. And I just want to recognise that connection and their custodianship and the job they've done looking after this the Gary Word landscape for millennia. So I just wanted to recognise that before we kick off. But this episode today, we are focusing on section 3. It runs from the Mount Difficult Road down into Hall's Gap. So it's the last sort of section of day 1 of the stage race, and for those looking to do a longer run, it's sort of the 50k run from Mount Zero into Hall's Gap.
Yeah, thanks Mark for the intro. My name's Pat. Yeah, we're talking today about Sector 3 and some stats on this section. Starting at the Mount Difficult Road to Hall's Gap is 13.3 kilometres. It's only got an elevation gain of 285 metres, and it's got a lot more elevation loss than elevation gain. We've all had some notable moments of this part of the trail. The three of us actually ran it this morning with a little bit of excitement. Maybe we can get to that in a second. Yeah, what about you, Phil? Any notable moments here?
Oh yeah, g'day. My name's Phil. I'm stoked to be hanging out with Paddy and Mark. I'll make the claim that I'm probably the only one here with 10 toenails. So, these two had better sort of work on their technique a little bit. But this section's, it's a lot. I'm not going to say easier than sections 1 and 2. It's as Paddy just mentioned, it's a lot of downhill going on. But I think in trail running parlance, you've got downhill sections or its own art form, really. One of the things, you got to watch out for absolutely hammering your quads and that sort of stuff, but also just falling over, and there's a lot of challenges. There are a lot of challenges to running downhill, and especially in a racing scenario.
And I've definitely been complacent a number of times, both with this section, like technicality wise, and then also elevation wise, because you hit Mount Difficult Road and you think, oh, perfect, now it's just the downhill section. But you actually start with a climb straight from Mount Difficult Road. You go up probably a couple of 100 metres before you get to Werdug Lookout, which is quite incredible. And if you're not racing, it's really worth a stop and to have a look around and take in what you can see.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like Werdug Lookout, you get up there, it's one of the few spots in the park where you can actually get views across 4 of the lakes in the area. So like in the Wimmera, it's a very dry part of Victoria. So water, permanent water is pretty rare, unlike if you're in sort of East Gippsland. So you've actually got views out across, you see Lake Wartook, Belfield, Lonsdale and Fynes, all at the one spot. And it's one of the very few areas in the park where you can get views of those 4 lake systems. So it is a pretty significant and beautiful spot.
Is that the spot where there's an eagle that hangs out there, isn't there?
I often see an eagle, just to the south, along that cliff edge.
Yep.
So just south of Wordug Lookout. You get to that cliff edge just after you've crossed the road again, and I've often seen this eagle soaring right next to you just off the cliff edge.
Very cool, yeah.
A couple of times it sort of just popped up. It's been soaring there for a while, has a bit of a look at me, decides maybe I'm too big to eat, and then it just like glides away, and it's happened twice in exactly the same spot.
I've seen him as well, and I remember hanging out there for ages and just watching him fly around, because it's quite striking, even up close. You've got the view out far to the lakes, but up close it's quite a sheer drop, something to be aware of if you're running at night time. It
is incredible. And maybe we can actually talk also about the technical nature of the trail, say between Wordug Lookout, even before you get to Wordug Lookout, and then all the way through to that cliff edge. It is a bit of a techie downhill sections, and then when you're running along the cliff edge itself, like it's some of my favourite trail of the GPT.
And I think when we say cliff edge, we kind of, you're there, but you're kind of, the trail's a few metres back from, it's not like you're running right on the cliff edge.
Yeah, you have a choice.
You definitely feel safe. It's not like you're like, oh, there's a cliff there, I better not go there. You can actually, where the main trail alignment is definitely no safety concerns or anything like that.
We're also adults, and that, I suppose, on that techie trail aspect, it is quite rocky in that area. It's ankle busting territory a little bit, especially if you're trying to race it. But yeah, it's worth sort of keeping your wits about you and not getting too complacent, thinking that you're getting a bit tired and there's some sort of flat sections. Do make sure you keep looking out a few steps in front of you. Not to trip over.
Yeah, and I can probably talk about a personal experience there of when you're running that section, you have to watch out in the wet. Like I had a big stack last year, running up there by myself in the wet, and I stepped to avoid a puddle. I stepped on a rock that was right next to the puddle, and I guess it was one of those rocks that people don't usually stand on, therefore it had some lichen build up on it, and in the wet it was just like this slippery, slimy rock, and just had a complete washout. Landed on a glute, got one of those fantastic glute bruises that hurts a lot, and so I always see that rock on the way past and think about the pain that it caused me, but it was probably operator error, really.
But it is a really good, but like there is a lot, that black lichen, because there is a massive percentage of this trail across the whole 162 kilometres that is on rock.
Yeah, which is so good.
It is amazing. It's amazing. Very technical. If you're not used to running on rock, it'll probably beat you up a little bit. But the key thing I think here from this story is the black lichen in the wet is slippery. It doesn't matter. I don't think you could find shoes that have the traction and the grip that'll actually stick to it. It's going to be slippery.
So Vibram made it to match.
Is that the challenge? To
find shoes that can get some crampons.
but I definitely think certainly as locals running these trails all the time, I actually have no issue running in the wet apart from that time where I had the big stack. But it's just a reminder that you really have to look out for the most commonly used part of the trail, and there's so much more grip on things that have high traffic. And you sort of see that different colour of the rock where it has high traffic. And there's something about the rock that's quite absorbent. It provides a bit of friction. There actually is grip there, provided you don't step on this mossy lichen stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Like, running in the wet, I've still got confidence my foot's going to stay where it lands on the trails that run all the time, as long as it's not about to land on an area of black lichen.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing that always gets me is when you start feeling a bit tired, when you start losing your concentration, or or it's getting towards the end. And I suppose with this segment, this third segment, you look at the profile and there's a big downhill into Hall's Gap. And for most people that means, and for me running the 50k, that meant I was nearly done. And so you kind of get this in your mind that your work's done, that you can sort of chill out a little bit. It happens to me all the bloody time here when I sort of start getting a little bit tired, usually around that sort of 18, 19 kilometres. I haven't had any food for a while, or, electrolytes or water. And that's when I always go, arse up, always fall over. Trail running's bloody hard. I've got a road running background, and I reckon it takes me almost twice as long to recover from a heavy day out in the trails as it does from a decent run on the road in Melbourne. It took me ages to figure it out. I was like, why am I recovering so slowly from just like an 8k run? I was like, I was in the trails, and it just takes a lot out of you.
I guess there's a bit of a locals advantage to these trails that we enjoy. If you don't run anything but these trails, it's sort of we do feel like it's a bit of an unfair advantage when it comes to the events, and I feel like I'm certainly further up the order than I would be if I didn't live here.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and maybe if we'd just talk about that downhill section. So from where would say the cliff edge, as we called it, section ends, you go to some defined stairs, some good rocky stairs, and from there the downhill section starts just after that. It's actually quite gradual, super runnable, and it goes for about 4k's before you get down to say the Chautauqua Peak Saddle.
Yeah, very, very consistent. Machine built, 10% gradient. That 4k, very consistent sort of flow through there.
Yeah, and back to my experience on the 50k, I was cooked when I got to this part, and this was a section that I'd always earmarked that I was gonna have a lot of fun. I was like, on race day, I'm gonna get to this point, and I'm gonna be able to fly down, and I'm gonna have some fun. I'm gonna go through this winding single track. It's good underfoot. I know it well. It's all downhill to Hall's Gap. I was like, I had it visualized that this was going to be my time. I got to the point, and I was just completely cooked at the top. I'd run out of water. I had a couple of little cramps, here and there, and then just really couldn't open up. But it really is an enjoyable. Like, we all ran it this morning. It's just a fantastic run.
It was good this morning. We did have a little bit of excitement. We have a rule when it's a little bit warmer that if you're at the front and you're sort of on snake duty, if you see a snake, if you have to jump over a snake, anything to do with snakes, you then have the benefit of being able to then go to the back of the pack and let somebody else lead until you see the next snake. But this morning, we did actually have a snake sighting, and Mark did a bit of a dance around the snake. Do you want to talk us through that, Mark?
I reckon I was the one experiencing it. You saw the dance with the danger needle, Pat. So you should probably describe what you saw happening, playing out in front of you.
I actually had some sort of disco tune in my head as Mark was dancing around. It's sort of like
spinning,
because it was quite close. Like, it
was a little bit too. It didn't rear, but it was closer than I'd usually prefer to be. My encounters with snakes, I don't, they're there. They're part of trail, part of being out in the bush is that snakes are going to be present. But I must admit, it is nicer when they're not that close.
Yeah, it was a bit close, and then I guess it wanted to go to its home, and we were in the way of it getting to its home, and so it started wriggling towards us at speed. So there was a bit of a second jump back, a bit of a scurry, a few little squeals.
I suppose it's the thing that we know about snakes is that they don't want to be near us. They want to bugger off. They want to get the hell out of there. They're scared of us, and it's only when we startle them or put them in a stressful situation that they attack. And it's funny, having been bitten before, I still am happy to go out running when I know that that the danger is there. And I've seen, hundreds of snakes out on the trails, but it just doesn't affect me that much because every time I see them, I watch them, disappear away from me. There is danger there, but it shouldn't stop you getting out there and running. It's very rare that someone gets bitten, and really, really rare that people die.
Yeah, you just have to give them the time to, get to where they want to go. They're scared of us. We're obviously scared of them. But if we give them the time, they wriggle away. It's just sometimes on those downhill sections where you've got a bit of momentum. Yeah, it's sort of sometimes you just see them a little bit too late.
You're referring to me jumping over that tiger snake?
Any number of times that you've successfully or unsuccessfully jumped over snakes.
Dallianced with the danger noodle.
I know when I was running on this section during the event last year, I think I was in a similar position to you because I'd had a really great first two sectors and was feeling really good. And this sector here was, Paddy mentioned, you got the bit of a climb. You go past the hiker camp, which is actually beautiful, by the way. So if you come in to hike, I'd encourage some fantastic views out west over Lake Wartook for sunset and things. So I encourage people to come. It's a couple hundred metres off the main trail, so you don't actually go past it, but encourage those wanting to hike to stay there. It's beautiful. And you get up the Wartook Lookout, and you come down about a K past that. You cross over the Mount Difficult Road before getting to that couple of K section, which we're referring to, the Cliff Edge section. So I'd crossed the road. I was feeling really good. Went about a K onto the Cliff Edge section and then just blew up. So by blow up, cramping in multiple leg muscles. So I went through between there and I think we'll get to Chautauqua, the end of that sort of 4K descent. I went through nearly a whole bottle of pickle juice because it was just every 5 minutes I was stopping, and I was just the heat and I thought I dialed in my nutrition and my hydration plan, but it got to me.
I want to comment about Chautauqua. So Chautauqua Peak is very close to where you run past at the end of this third sector, just before you get down to Halls Gap. So you get to, say, the Chautauqua Peak Saddle, we call it, and then you go on this section that's very familiar to us as locals because we're always running the Chautauqua Loop or integrating it into a Pinnacle Chautauqua Loop for our regular runs. That's where I get massively complacent about just this nice flowy downhill. You switch off your brain a little bit. You're on the home stretch, and this section punches above its weight for the amount of tumbles that people have right at the end of this third sector.
As I said before, you're getting tired by the time you're here. Towards the end, you're getting to Halls Gap. So from that Chautauqua Saddle, you can see the township down beneath you. So you really get this, this feeling that you're nearly home. You're nearly, either having a break if you carry on through, or there's a brewery cafe at the bottom. You can have a beer or a coffee, some kind of brew. And so and it's 3 kilometres ish from the Chautauqua Saddle. There's a bit of zigzagging trail that goes down. It's not too challenging. There's some rocks and other bits and pieces, but it's all downhill from there. But it is easy to really stop thinking, turn your brain off, and just not watch where your feet are going. By this time you are tired, probably dehydrated, desperate for a pint.
and I've got to say, you get to say you're near the cricket oval, so you go past that, you cross the Mount Victory Road. We were just talking about it this morning as we were running it. You get to this this section. I think there's a segment on Strava for this. It's behind the school there. I can't remember what the segment's called, but it's just, there's something about this couple of 100 metre stretch that you think you're home, and then you go up the most gentle incline and you feel like it's the biggest hill ever.
It's like Heartbreak Hill. Is that in the Boston Marathon or something like that? It's Heartbreak Hill at the end. It's not a huge hill, but it really ruins people.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I had the best experience from the whole. It's only a 200-metre section, but for me, by far the best experience on the whole event last year for me occurred in that section. So I was coming through. I think it was somewhere. It was in the early afternoon. It was hot. It was sort of in the high 30s, and I heard the school kids playing out there. And my little fella was attending the Halls Gap Primary School, and I'm like, what are they doing? It's not lunchtime. What are they doing outside? It's too hot to be outside. Anyway, as I get over the little rise that we're talking about, the school had been, the teacher doing a maths lesson, but they'd been looking at the live tracker. And so, because I was there in Liverpool School, the whole school had come out in line, so it was about 60 kids, lined each side of the track and were kind of cheering me on to be at the end of the 50k. Wow. And then a little fella came and opened the door to the Botanic Gardens for me to then come through. And to me, it was such a highlight of the whole experience.
Does it disqualify you having unfair help, opening the gates and stuff?
I won't tell you some of the other help I got throughout the race then, Phil. If you're thinking I'm going to get disqualified from that.
But I mean, yeah, that would have been such a special moment. And particularly you probably had, I think we've spoken about it, you had no idea that they were kind of orchestrating that.
No. Just came in and called. I'm like, what are they outside? Why are the kids outside?
Yeah.
So it was a great experience.
I was just thinking about, and we were talking before this about, our motivations for getting out there, and why do you do it in the first place, and what do we get out of it? When we get out there in the mountains and get out running and that sort of stuff. There are every reason under the sun for wanting to do it. But you think about these sorts of things, and having your boy see his old man competing at a pretty good level. It's just one of those things. Your kids will have that for life as one of their memories that they take along with them, and that's got to be one of the motivators.
But there's actually a lot of different ways to run this. If you're just here on a day trip and you just want to hit some of the trail, this is definitely a part you can hit a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, you really can. You can spend a couple of days if you're in Halls Gap, staying, as a lot of people do, stay in Halls Gap or Pomonal or somewhere else around the area. You can head up the path through the Botanical Gardens. You hit Venus Baths. There's a nice little flattish loop there. But then, you can head up to the pinnacle. You can, then go up and over Chautauqua, as we've talked about, through, a couple of different ways. There really is a lot of, there's a lot of different runs.
I reckon that's right. Like for me, I reckon we'll obviously discuss day 4 is sort of when you leave Halls Gap heading south towards the pinnacle and things. But if we're looking at those sort of loops north, I think there's a key one. Like I know the Chautauqua loop, which we discussed, it's about a 5k loop, 200 metres of vert. One of the regular runs we do on the Garryword Trail Run Friday mornings. Really encourage people to get along. I think we did it yesterday morning, didn't we, as part of the run, and that's really nice. There's a couple little options there. The run we did this morning, which is the loop, so you've got the Barocca. So Barocca Lookout, there's a trail that goes to that. You got about a 4k section along the Mount Difficult Road, and then it actually links up with this section of the Peaks Trail. I think we did 19 this morning, but if you go up to Wordug Lookout, take a beautiful half with about a 900 metre vert. So it's not a not to be sneezed at, but there's some really great options there.
It's one of my favourite weekend loops that you can just you do from the centre of town, so it's very accessible, and particularly that trail up to Barocca, which is not part of the GPT. It's a bit wild. Like I really love it, both going up and going down. Certainly going down, you've really got to watch your foot placement. Very, very technical on the downhill. Going up, it's a fair old hike.
And I want to, hey, Paddy, we were kind of reflecting on it a little bit this morning, but one of the things that we've done on a Friday morning runs on that trail is had a Barocca Challenge, where we set some time. We have 40 minutes up and then 30 minutes back, and the whole idea is, can you get to the lookout or as far as you can, and then keep testing yourself. So those people that run regularly get to try and build in it. And no, it's a really enjoyable one. But I do remember the last time you and I did a run, and I know you're a couple of minutes ahead of me at the top. But do you want to? We're talking about motivation and we've talked a bit about Strava here, but do you want to just maybe recap what happened with the...
Look, I can only talk from my perspective here. So Mark and I were doing the Barocca Challenge. We got 40 minutes to get up the top, and I was feeling pretty pumped about it that day. Like, I put everything into it. And I reckon I get up to the top in maybe 35 minutes from the roundabout on the Mount Victory Road up the Barocca Trail. Got to the lookout, and I was completely stoked. Like, I was like, oh man, it's like that's so much faster than I thought I was going to get. Like, it was looking pretty good. Mark, I was a couple of minutes maybe in front of Mark. I was just up there. I don't know what I was doing, but I was pretty chuffed. Mark had a bit of a walk around when he got there, and then afterwards, I love sinking into the data, as a lot of trail runners do. Part of the enjoyment's the run, part of the enjoyment's then the massive amount of data analysis that you want to do about your run afterwards. So I was looking at the run, and I looked at that segment on Strava that goes on what we just run. My time didn't even register on that segment, because it had this stupid little curly tail at the end of the segment where somebody's gone for a bit of a lookout up the top. And I'm like, nah, we can't have this. That is a bad segment. I'm making a new segment, and I'm making it now.
So really what happened, Paddy, was you cracked the sads that your segment didn't display, and you created a new segment to make sure that your segment was going to show up and record your right time.
It just bitter at all.
Yeah, funnily enough, my new segment, the end point of that segment was well within the end point of that day's run.
Well, I remember another day. So the three of us have done this run, I guess. So today was a clockwise loop, right, where we went up to Barocca first and then down the Peaks Trail. I remember going back. It's probably 6 or so months ago, or a year ago. The three of us did this run, but in anti-clockwise, so up the Peaks Trail and down. And you actually get down. Once you're down the bottom of Barocca, you cross over at Roundabout, which takes you to the Wonderland car park, and then you got about 2k back to Hall's Gap on the Peaks Trail. You kind of connect in with it after back into Hall's Gap, but there is a magic swimming hole. And I remember this day. It was a beautiful run. We'd got to the summit, and then we're running back, and we just stopped, and there's a swimming hole. It's really deep. You can jump in the rocks. A couple of, it's about a K from back towards Hall's Gap from the roundabout. And just, and then you've only got about 1,500 metres back to Hall's Gap to sort of the end of the run. And it's pretty rare having those swimming holes on this Peaks Trail. So but for me, I remember that how enjoyable it was at the end of a long run, just to be able to have that dip and relax.
It's beautifully manicured. It's so picturesque. It looks like a landscaper has gone there and made it a beautiful swimming hole. It's really a bit surreal.
Very grammable.
Yeah, very grammable. Yeah. But no, that was a good day, and the three of us just stripping down to our undies and frolicking was really enjoyable.
Oh, the frolicking.
thought I'd throw a little bit of visual candy for the listeners.
Well, speaking of frolicking, we probably I know the past few episodes we've run through who the fastest times are, and some of those records on the segments. Did we want to touch on who's got those times currently?
I think that's a brilliant idea. First place is Brodie Nankervis, and that was November 23, 2023. So first GPT event. I know Brodie was in the Esk Valley Orienteering Club team for the stage team relay. And I know that because we were competing
Yeah.
against those guys, myself, Mark, and Phil. And I've actually got the second place time on the same day. So, right up there with Brody. Like, one and two, me and Brody. That's pretty good company.
Yeah.
Do we have to talk about my time compared to Brody's?
No, but what I was going to mention though is with these Strava tables, they're quite informative, and it's got your heart rate, and you are average 5 beats per minute less than Brody. So you weren't even trying that day either. So I reckon if you gave it a crack, you would smash him.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to
5
reveal
beats per
much
minute.
about my age. I don't really keep count, but I would imagine that there's some age difference there. I'm not making excuses, but my time for that sector was 1 hour and 17 minutes, so one of the faster sectors. Brody only beat me by just over 18 minutes.
He's had 2 pints in the shower by that stage.
Yeah, so that's pretty
If he's old enough
convincing.
to drink.
The fastest female time was set during the recent GPT event, which was very different environmental conditions, so incredibly hot, and that was Simone Brick. Under those conditions, that's a super impressive time.
That's fantastic.
1 hour and 28.
And it's interesting. So that was what I mentioned earlier about so Simone and Caitlin going down that front side for positions 1 and 2 on the 50k, and I sort of had a front seat to watch them battle it out. And it's really interesting. So on the day, Simone got the win. Caitlin came in second, but Caitlin passed me first. So Caitlin was in first place before Simone overtook her. So really, really cool running from those two, and then also to get 1 and 2 on the CRs on Strava. It's really, really cool to watch.
It's pretty interesting when you look at some of the CRs on those northern sections. Typically now they're set in November, either 23 or 24.
Yeah.
And they're typically set by people who are doing the either maybe the stage solo, but often the stage team relay, or the 50k. But it's funny because 5th on the list is Mike Dunstan, and that is an incredible time given that Mike was running the miler in 2023, and he's got the 5th fastest time for that third sector with 1 hour and 22.
At the end of this stage, he had another 110 kilometres plus to run, and he's sitting there at 5th on the table. That is...
Well, him and Matt Crean there, if you look at that table, so they finished 1 and 2 in the miler, and they're 4th and 5th. So Matt's in 4th there on that segment.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
That was a good, obviously a good battle between those two over that course, over the miler course in 2023.
Some really freakish running, hey?
Do we want to talk, given that we're the end of the third stage, and that's the end of day 1, plus the end of the 50k? I know, that because the 50k race we've got. I was just wondering, that should we reflect on that? We kind of talked about the 3 stages. Do we want to talk about the 50k and sort of wrap that up as well?
Yeah, well, I think Phil, like your experience in the 50k, which you did incredibly well. I think you got 5th place in the recent event. Do you want to talk about how it was for you? Are you going to do it again?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to it. Definitely signing up again for the 50k. The miler is it's on the bucket list, because who wouldn't want to attack the entire trail? But for me the 50k is I don't know, it's an opportunity to get a bit of that faster running in. It presents different kinds of challenges, I suppose, with nutrition and preparation. So you don't have to be, preserving your body so much for what's to come for, the next, 24, 30 plus hours of traipsing through these trails. So the 50k for me, it was a chance to race. It was a chance to sort of test myself, run fast when the trail presented itself. And yeah, really just enjoy it. And that was sort of one of my goals, was to really enjoy the race. This year, I'm definitely signing up for the 50K again. And the goal will be to significantly drop the time. But, on the day it was 35 degrees and there really, it really wasn't much you could do to run quickly on the day. There was a bit of that sort of preservation element to it. Trying to make sure that hydration and nutrition were sort of to the fore. And
how did your call? Because you're pretty confident around town prior to the race about your sub 5 hours skill. And I know this did come up in episode 1, but how did that play out?
You've heard of train wrecks? Yeah. Look, yeah. I mean, the winner last year was about 35 minutes slower than the previous year. So that does sort of say something about, what the conditions were like on the day in 2024 versus 2023. And I mean, there are a couple of things going on there. I think a sub 5 hour is possible, which would really be, the 2023 winner of the 50K, Mikey Dimuantes. He ran it in what?
4:37.
4:37.
And 12 seconds.
And 12 seconds. See that? Yeah.
Which is current course record as well.
Yeah. That's blisteringly fast. But it shows that it's significantly possible to run under 5 hours for the 50K. Keeping in mind it's over 2,000 meters of vertical gain, or about 2,000. And as we've talked about, it's techie, it's difficult, it's trails, it's not. It's not an athletics track you're running on. So yeah, there is that, and then there's the other cheeky little, crown, I suppose, would be that the 50K starts at 7 a.m. The brewery opens at midday. If you can hit the brewery front door where the 50K finishes in Hall's Gap just before it opens, I don't know. I feel like there should be some sort of belt buckle or something.
I understand that the brewery gives away beer to all 50K finishers before midday. Is that right? Can we confirm that?
I am under that impression too. I think we probably need to confirm. But I do really like that event village, right? So you come in during the event. So you run in. For those that aren't familiar, you come in. The event finishes a 50K at the event hub, right? So you come in and it's a visitor information centre in Hall's Gap, but you've got the brewery, who have also usually set up some live music during the event going on as well there. You got the main event hub where they also do some catering and meals, and you've got your drop bags and things, and also the main sort of aid station, Paddy, for you when you come in as a miler. But it's just adds a really great vibe for the town too, and you found a lot of the local community coming in and just sort of being a part of it as well.
Yeah, I think from a community perspective, it feels like it's very inclusive. It's I think the organisers do a super good job of using local things, really sort of helping the community along. Like our economy essentially depends on outsiders and visiting, and even sort of the catering is being done by Peak Chef, who is local and does a brilliant job. But yeah, it's really, really good to see, and just a nice vibe in town throughout that time, which is great.
It's probably worth mentioning single track of the crew who organised the GPT, and they do a fantastic job of the whole event, but specifically the feeling that they've created in the Halls Gap area, near the visitor information centre in that forecourt. It's really, really cool, and it's over that weekend. I think all of us would probably have conversations with sort of randoms at the cafe or wherever we happen to be, and you can see people who aren't into running. They're just here for whatever reason. They just happen to be in Halls Gap on that weekend, and you can sort of see them shaking their head and wondering what the hell's going on. And you talk to them and start telling them about the event and what these crazy maniacs are doing, how far did you run? You didn't even do 160 k's, did you, Pat?
I think we'll get to that in a later episode. Thanks.
You got a whole bunch of people. You got a whole bunch of people trying to run, a long distance, and yeah. So, but it's a festival atmosphere, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and then you actually see the runners, and any time from Friday afternoon, and increasing over the weekend to Sunday, an increasing amount of people like limping around, moving like zombies.
Yeah.
And yeah, the as far as the course records as well for the 50k, Simone Brick actually just got the course record in the female 50k over the previous time set in 2023, and she came in at 5:52, and again, like in those conditions, because it was so stinking hot, like what an amazing run.
Yeah, super impressive.
But I think it's probably a good point to wind up this episode about Sector 3. Until next time.